Alright, so my topic is about music. So how many of you listen to music? With a show of hands. Now, how many of you illegally download music, honestly? Alright. For those who do, you should reconsider your actions because that has some serious consequences to the music industry. Piracy on music has been dated back in the early 2000s with a peer-to-peer site called Napster, and is still a big problem today in the 21st century. While there may be other forms of obtaining music for free, such as illegally streaming it, downloading music is proving to be the biggest problem according to the RIAA, or the Recording Industry Association of America. My main point is that people who illegally download music are hurting the music industry. I'll talk about how 1, it hurts aspiring artists, 2, how it hurts artists economically, and 3, how it negatively affects workers in the music industry. My first point is that torrenting websites are affecting aspiring and rising artists. Some examples are Valet, Steve Lacy, and Cody Chain. Some of you may have heard of these artists. Depending on the artist, albums cost thousands of dollars to produce, and pirating websites make it difficult for them to gain back the money they spent. Forbes magazine quotes, "What people don't realize is that many up-and-coming artists are one missed paycheck away from homelessness. It's already difficult for an artist to make a living through recording, performing, and selling their work, especially independently. And when rising artists are being featured through the Billboard website, it gains a lot of attention for torrenting websites." Kimberly James, president of indie label CDM Records, says that it's a massive battle to get the music down once it's been uploaded. New artists can't afford to pay against it. With an estimate of 10% of music royalties lost to piracy, for example, if someone were to make $135 million off an album, they would lose around $13.5 million. Now imagine, that's just with big numbers, but imagine that with smaller artists. With that, it scares artists away or even makes them drop out of the business. According to Joshua Friedlander, vice president of the research at the RIAA, the sales of top-selling albums dropped from more than 50% in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, the major record labels in the United States fell from about 25,000 people in 1999 to less than 10,000 today. With this information, this leads to my second point, and that illegally downloading music hurts artists economically. Although there are famous artists like Drake or Rihanna who make tons of money off loyal fans, they, like all other artists, suffer from the negative consequences of torrenting websites. According to the IFPI, or the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, estimated in 2005 there were about 20 billion illegal downloads worldwide, which is assumed that only 20% of these downloaded songs would have been purchased legitimately if piracy did not exist. The amount of money that artists could benefit from that 20% is immense. They could use the money for higher quality music videos or even pump out more songs for fans to enjoy. Another fact, according to the RIAA article by Steven Sewick, the total piracy loss to the sound recording industries from global piracy equals $5.3 billion, and that was recorded in 2012. With this in mind, artists are scared for their financial well-being. A popular article posted by Dina, artists and record labels have been forced to find new ways to distribute music to work around illegal downloads. For example, selling singles now seems to trump a full-length album. The music industry now has to try even harder than it previously did to expose artists to a wider audience. This often causes delay in releasing music or even slows down production of music. Lastly, while artists suffer big time, those who work under them suffer as well. Becoming an artist isn't a one-man job. It requires a crew of people to help them along with their career. And when artists fall, they suffer as well. According to the Institute for Policy Intervention, concludes that global music piracy causes $12.5 billion of economic losses every year, 71,060 US jobs lost, and a loss of $2.7 billion in workers' earnings. Some examples of these workers are producers, engineers, and the marketing support team. And while some may think that legally streaming services such as Spotify or Apple Music is helping with the problem, it's not nearly enough to stop the issue. In summary, I've told you about the negative consequences of illegally downloading music that it has on the music industry. By first stating it hurts emerging artists, second it hurts artists economically, and third, it hurts workers in the music industry. I hope this speech influences people in the class to purchase music rather than illegally obtaining it. Thank you.
All right, well, the presentation is full of evidence that you're using on the individual points. I thought that you did a good job on the first and second point, especially. The third point, it's a little confusing because on an earlier point you mentioned that their number of jobs were down by 25,000, from 25,000 down to 10,000, and then in your third point you're saying, we lost 71,000 jobs, and I'm looking at those numbers and I'm thinking that's a little inconsistent. If that's a different group of people working in the industry, that needs to be clarified how it is a different group of people. Otherwise, it just is confusing. I thought that at the end, when you argued kind of a rebuttal issue that streaming is not really replacing the revenues that are being lost to downloading, that's a good refutation argument, kind of a built-in answer to the rebuttal, but you don't have any evidence on that particular point, and I think that's a little bit problematic. But the proposition was clear. You do preview what the contents are. You lay them out and you follow the structure pretty well, although the signposting I thought was inconsistent on the first and third point. The second point was labeled very clearly. On the evidence, like I said, I thought you had a lot of good statistical evidence, some testimony, factual data. You mentioned some examples of artists who are aspiring artists who get shot down, but you don't really, you give us 3 or 4 names, but you don't tell us what happened to them and what their life is like, or what, whether or not their albums sold or they made any money. So I'm not exactly sure that those examples do much to help your position. I think we needed a little bit more detail on that. Okay, thank you.